So hi, I'm Stu Olden.
And I'm Georgina Wilson Ayala. And together we present Advance to Contract, the podcast series where we explore how SMEs can break into, engage with and secure contracts in the UK defence sector.
So join us as we share insights, strategies and real-world experiences to help you navigate this very complex but at the same time rewarding market. Welcome back to Advance to Contract, the podcast that helps innovative engineering and technology businesses navigate the defence sector and most importantly win work. I'm Stu and with me is Georgina. Welcome back, Georgina.
Hi.
Today we're talking about how the MOD or a prime decides whether it trusts the buyer that it's buying from, be that an SME or another tier 1 or tier 2 organisation. We're focusing on that trust, the clarity, the risk perceptions that are formed of that particular company. But before we get into the mechanics of that, we will touch on technical proposals in the next episode that we do.
Yes.
But today is all about that trust and how that organisation decides how it's going to buy. So let's get into it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. It appears. Yep. So hi everyone. As Stu said, our theme is positioning SMEs as trusted enablers rather than just suppliers. I think this comes off the back of, I guess, from your research and experience of what the MOD is looking for, isn't it?
Yep.
A lot of the time it isn't just suppliers, it's actually partners.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And so the objective of this episode is to coach SMEs to move from product selling to capability partnering by showing how the MOD assesses clarity, risk and trust through capture-led engagement and reposition SMEs to think, talk and show up in MOD engagement before the tender and inside the bid. So Stu, as always, let's start with a few opening questions.
Okay, look forward to that.
So I guess from a capture lens perspective, before you speak defence language, you need to know which voices matter the most, who's got the biggest say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how does that work? What are your thoughts on how that can work?
Yeah, so I think the people you need to consider when you're bidding in or looking to bid into a particular opportunity, there's four main categories really. One is who influences the requirement, and that's generally engineering. So they'll be looking at what capability they need an organisation to deliver, and depending where you sit in the supply chain, that will depend on the sort of type of capability you're delivering. There is also the end user. So what requirements are you delivering that they need in order to do their job and perform operationally. But also, if you're feeding into the supply chain, you need to think about the end MOD procurement. How can you make their life easier, even if you're feeding directly into the MOD, or how do you make your customer that's feeding into the MOD's life easier? Secondly, there's who signs off the budget. So most importantly, money makes the world go round. That's generally in the procurement area of an organisation you're selling to, be that the MOD or a prime. But that's usually, it's not an individual, it's usually a team decision. So when you're putting in your bid, you need to be very aware that bid might get chunked up and given to various people to mark, so that you've got to understand that you are articulating correctly in each section and answering the question that's been asked. So and the budget aspect is probably spread across quite a wide area. So are you giving value for money, not just the figure that you put at the bottom of the bid that you are pricing it at? Thirdly, I think it's who feels the pain of the current problem, and that's generally the end user, and whether you've got a sponsor for that end user. And having a sponsor really, really does help you to get a high scoring bid. Because if you've already engaged, as we've talked before in previous episodes, with the end user and got their buy-in to that particular capability or service that you're delivering, then that adds a lot of value to the bid. And then finally, who will be that end user of it? So who will use it, who will support it? So it's not necessarily just the operator of the equipment, but it's how easy is it to support and maintain, how is it to train on. So you've got to think about quite a lot of things when you're delivering a capability.
Yeah.
So if, Georgina, if you don't know what each stakeholder cares about, the stakeholders we just talked about there, and you can't speak their language, how does, you've talked about capture plans before previously, how does you putting a capture plan enable you to articulate that?
It's a good question, isn't it, that one? Stu, yeah. I'll get out my what they called, not magnifying glass, snowball, future, a future one.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it comes down, from my experience, to the ability to make assumptions. I know it is controversial because quite often, I've led bid teams where assumptions are not welcomed.
Right.
But actually, we need to be able to make assumptions to progress. So, informed assumptions, of course, and justifiable with a rationale. But it creates a baseline. So we need to have a baseline view of what are the, as you said, the four categories. What are the requirements, the needs, the pain points, all those, the information, basically, the insights on those. And then that capture plan will identify those gaps. So I think it's quite normal at the start, isn't it, where we'll notice a lot of gaps, but not to be afraid of that, but it's important to know that they're
so
there.
Writing it down helps you to identify that.
Yes, definitely. And so then if there's a gap in perhaps the technical piece, we're not fully sure of the system it's going on to or whatever, that can then be a clear action from the capture plan. We'll go and seek that information out. Or if the bid's coming in that we know about and we still need to progress and it's the right opportunity, then what assumption can we make on a baseline view of that, that'll still move us forward, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So if you're looking at that, those gaps in the area, that would actually naturally force you to identify or to try and find out who you need to speak to. And then you're going back to those 4 points of finding out who's the enabler, who's the blocker, who's the individual with the information that you need to seek.
Definitely. Almost the point where I welcome gaps. Quite often there may even be a gap log where I encourage teams to put what are the gaps of information. Because I think quite often we can try and we like to cover that up and it's seen as a negative, but actually I've seen the stronger capture teams and bid teams have gaps, but knowing about it means hopefully we've got some time to close them.
Not just assuming that you've got everything covered in your internal organisation.
Yes.
And I guess also you might identify partners that you might need to bring in, because you as a company might not be able to cover all of that.
Yes, definitely.
So Georgina, continuing on from there, some organisations sort of do the hard sell. So it's all about the technology, it's all about the product. We always say to clients, defence doesn't work with hard sells. It's more about a holistic solution. So how do you get on the same page as a buyer to ensure that you're covering all aspects of your proposal?
I've seen it work really well when there's the focus on, or the focus shifts from features to actual benefits.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So that aligns, I think, most well with like the evaluators or the people reading whatever it is, if it's a proposal or a brochure during the procurement process. So, and also outcomes. So what are the outcomes that the features enable? I think that's a key one. And I've worked with teams, I know you would have, Stu, where you go through, well, these are the features and this is the benefits, and then so what does that mean for the customer? So it's about putting that into the submission. I think that signals maturity and a customer focus, which is what's, as we've said already, isn't it? Which is really needed, and not a sales pressure.
Okay,
which is really good.
So what you're not doing is you're not sort of putting a load of spec sheets in and saying this is the technology, this is better than anything else. So what you're doing is thinking about it, as we said before, from the customer's perspective. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And depending on compliance, we could put those spec sheets in an appendix or somewhere, but
they're not the lead.
Yeah, exactly. They're not lead and not the main focus. Yeah. Okay. It's about making it as an easy read as possible. Okay. And I think as well, speaking in terms of like the operational benefits, I think as you've touched on before about being faster or cheaper, safer, like more reliant or reliable, how the features enable that to be.
But also, I guess it's not just stating that. It's having the evidence to back up that you are more agile, quicker, faster, cheaper. And again, that comes back to evidence. And
I guess the competitive insights as well, isn't it? Looking at what the competitor performance is, or competitor, whatever that is.
How you benchmark yourself against other competitors.
Yeah.
Okay. And being honest, I guess, as well.
Definitely.
Because you're not going to be high scoring in all areas. But as long as you say how you intend to make up maybe some deficits in some areas by maybe sort of improving the technology in a roadmap for development, or bringing in a partner that you can use to supplement that area. So,
definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right, Stu. So a good bid answer. Why does this matter to MOD? Not what the product does. I think is a good summary.
Yeah,
so, that's a good one. So if we move on to something that's good, we've established it's about the outcomes. We move on to aligning those outcomes with the MOD strategy. How do you align, or how would you recommend SMEs align with the buyer's strategic objectives, etc.?
Yeah. We always talk about this triangle, so time, cost and performance.
Okay.
So if you look at the time area, it's how quickly can you deliver that capability at a level that is acceptable and readiness. And we've heard before about gold plating solutions and getting everything right, but within defence, it's all about timeliness to deliver. There may be an operational requirement for that capability to be delivered now. So sometimes an 80% solution is good enough, as long as it's safe, as long as it's reliable, and it does what it says on the tin. You can get it out there and being used by the end customer, or the troops on the ground, who can then provide you feedback, and you can iterate the design and the development of that product, maybe through hardware or software upgrades. So that's the time bit. The cost piece, value for money, we've talked about before, but it's not also just about the unit price cost of a solution. Think about the whole life cost. It's often the cost of supporting that equipment through life far exceeds the actual initial cost of the individual equipment themselves. So you've got to think about that complete cost, and the end customer will want to understand what that complete cost is to support. There's no point delivering a cheaper option if it costs more to support when it's in operation. So, and then finally the performance piece. I touched on it a bit in the time area that I described. How can you uplift that performance from that initial operating capability, maybe that 80% solution, but is it modular and able to be adapted and upgraded through time, such that it's going to keep relevant within the operational environment. So that's quite key to understand how you can keep that capability going through whatever operational requirements are needed. So I think that's that's where I'd focus on, that time, cost, performance triangle. So back to you, Georgina. If you haven't worked in this sector before, and we talked about language, defence language before, and how you use that, how do you use that language, and how do you get on the same page as your buyer?
So I've seen it, I guess, best used when that language and insights from the capture or pre-market engagement phase is incorporated into messaging, which is all about clarity, you know, simple, non-jargon, very just clear to the point. So I think that's what works really well, and comes across best to the customer. I guess using any sector-specific acronyms where needed that we've touched on. And then anything that you can do throughout the process to show that we get it, whether that's the operational challenge, commercial challenge, no matter, or depending on the type of question and where we are in the process. So if that's an RFI, you know, demonstrating that we understand the process and we can feed into that, or if it's an ITT submission, you know, really strongly following the bid requirements against the evaluation criteria. Right. So so it depends on that. And
so on that evaluation criteria, you're talking about how the bid is going to be marked and assessed. Yeah. And often a lot of people don't look at that. They just answer the question how they think they want the question. They think the question should be answered. So you're saying that look at how many marks are allocated to which part of the bid and which are the key parts to get right. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and there's some, depending on, I guess, the type of procurement, I've seen some really the wacky mathematic equations, like where you get them, and you can reverse engineer those to see where, well, I guess what's most important to the customer, especially when business development or customer relationship maybe has been a bit lacking, or where you'd maybe don't have as many insights from it. You can really deep dive into the ITT and see, well, why has the customer put 30% on this? Because it's, of course, more value. Okay. And then you can do an assessment of, we'll pay more attention to this and this, and then that gives you a quote. And it's also really interesting for the review process. We'll come on to this into the technical proposal episode, but we can also use that evaluation criteria to assess, the review of the technical proposal as well. So you're talking sort
of red teaming. Yeah. If the red team uses that scoring matrix and goes through your proposal, you're then marking your own homework before you put it in front of the client.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Against what? Yeah, that's against what they need is going to look at. Yeah. Okay. I think that works really well. Yeah, definitely. And I think from the customer evaluation criteria as well, I think it's worthwhile noting that we're often in a position where we're bidding against like business to business, aren't we? Where in private sector procurement, there isn't always an evaluation criteria. So I often encourage teams to create their own evaluation criteria just based on that customer insights, competitive insights. So again, it's assumptions, but it gives something to target, doesn't it? Rather than just, like you said, writing the answer kind of thing.
So I guess that's where experience and relationships that you've built with the end customer really helps as well. Because if you don't know your end customer, you can't sort of second guess what they think is important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay. It comes to bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. In summary, in terms of MOD friendly language and clarity being like really key, I think it also signals confidence. It shows we're a confident supplier, but then it also conveys confidence to the MOD or Prime that they can have confidence in us, isn't it? Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Stu, on like what does it take for the MOD to see us as that trusted enabler, not just a supplier?
Yeah. So I think, like you say, speaking the right language, almost feeding back the language that they have put in the proposal. A lot of people don't don't tend to answer the question and maybe go off on a bit of a tangent in putting together what they think is important rather than actually answering the question. So very much so, always have the scope of work or the RFQ on your desk and keep on referring back to that in terms of what they're asking for, and utilise the language within the RFQ within your responses. And that will naturally gain you credibility by the marker doing that. Structure your answer as per the scope of work. Make sure your section 1 is the same as the section 1 question. That's where your compliance matrix comes in, that you go across and you answer that question. I've seen in really good bids that you kind of have a fold out page at the back of the bid, whereby you can go down and look at a table that says question 1, and you should kind of mark your own homework that you're actually answering all the points within that question within the text of your answer. So that's really important. And like you said, Georgina, before, think about that. So what? Don't just answer a question, reread it and say, so what does that mean? What would that actually mean to my buyer? A, do they understand it? And B, what's the added value that I'm bringing by providing that answer to that question? So I think that's how you kind of get the buyer on your side.
Definitely. And I think that's a nice segue and potential pause to like the next section, which is about a win theme light touch, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll cover that next time.
Okay, so that's it for today's episode of Advance to Contract, where we help SMEs navigate into the defence landscape with clarity, confidence and purpose.
So if you found today's discussion useful, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your network and leave us a review. And if you've got questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd really like to hear from you. You can download our top tips and resources from the website link in the episode description.
Thank you for listening. And remember, every big contract starts with a single conversation. Until next time, keep advancing.